The marker was a Kelvari hazard containment beacon. Serial reference 7 Tevin Alt, buried in the northeastern subsurface of settlement Vorn at a depth of 11 meters. It had been placed there 61 years before I was born, the contamination event that warranted it. A chemical processing rupture in the colony's second year, before the filtration arrays were properly sealed, had been remediated, certified closed, and filed under historical incident records before my parents were old enough to work a relay console. The marker itself had been powered down, logged as inert, and forgotten so completely that when I first took the courier dispatcher post at Vorn Station, not one of my orientation documents mentioned it. I am telling you this because the first thing Council Elder Pevithorn asked me, when the alert came through on my console at 8:0314 station time, was whether I had known about the marker. I had not. No one at the station had. The beacon's registry entry was 61 years old and listed under a decommissioned hazard response protocol that the Kelvari Compact had retired in the second generation of my colony's history. I found it only after the alert fired. After the alert had already done what it did. It did was this. The marker's power cell was not dead. It was low. It had been low for approximately 2 decades, sustaining itself on the residual thermal gradient of the subsurface layer, drawing just enough current to keep its internal clock cycling. At 0314 on the morning of the alert, a minor seismic adjustment in the northeastern strata. Nothing that would have registered on any surface sensor, nothing that would have alarmed anyone, shifted the marker's antenna array by 4 degrees. 4 degrees was enough. Beacon found a clear transmission path to the sky for the first time in 6 decades. It broadcast on the channel it had always been assigned. Kelvari Joint Hazard Compact Emergency Band 7. A chemical contamination active event distress signal, automated, repeating, precisely formatted per the protocol specifications of 61 years ago, carrying the colony's founding coordinates and the contamination classification code for the original processing rupture. Severity rating, mass-casualty, status, ongoing. The status was not ongoing. The status had been certified closed before I was born. But the beacon did not know that. The beacon knew only that it had a charge, a clear sky, and a standing instruction to broadcast until it received a confirmation of response. The Kelvari Joint Hazard Compact Emergency Band 7 had been decommissioned on our side in the same protocol retirement that decommissioned the challenge beacon's registry. We had stopped monitoring it. We had in fact stopped monitoring it so thoroughly that I did not even know it had once existed. Until I pulled the 61-year-old incident file 0317 that morning. 3 minutes after my console lit up in a way I had never seen a console light up. The channel was not decommissioned on Earth's side. I did not know that either. What I knew at 0314 was that my courier routing console had received a response confirmation. The Kelvari Joint Hazard Compact Emergency Band 7, on which I had never transmitted anything, and on which no one at Vorn Station had transmitted anything in living memory, had received a reply. The reply was in compact treaty format, authentication code current, and it read as follows. Terran Deep Grid Hazard Response Array, Sector Coverage Station Orvith 9, confirms receipt of mass-casualty chemical contamination distress signal from Settlement Vorn, Kelvari Colonial Zone. Signal received at 312 station time. Response protocol initiated under Article 9 of the Kelvari Joint Hazard Compact, Emergency Chemical Event Provision. Estimated response composition to follow within 6 hours. I read that message 4 times. Then I pulled up Article 9 of the Kelvari Joint Hazard Compact. Article 9, Emergency Chemical Event Provision, authorized a signatory to dispatch whatever response assets it judged proportionate to a mass-casualty chemical contamination event. It did not cap the response. It did not require the affected party's consent before dispatch. It required only that the responding party notify the affected party of its intent, which the Terran station had done. Message I had now read 5 times. I sent a courier drone to the Elder's residence at 0322. Elder Pevithorn arrived at the station at 0341, still in her night robe, and I showed her the console without saying anything. She read the message. She read it again. She pulled the beacon's registry entry, which I had already pulled, and she read that. She was a woman of 73 years. who had governed the colony through 2 drought cycles, a structural failure in the water reclamation wing, and a disputed boundary negotiation that had lasted 11 years. I had never seen her go still the way she went still in front of my console at 0341. She said, "The contamination event was resolved." I said, "Yes, Elder, 61 years ago." She said, "The beacon was logged inert." I said, "The registry says so." The power cell does not appear to have agreed. She looked at the estimated response composition field, still red to follow. She said, "How large is an Article 9 response?" I had been researching that for 19 minutes. I said, "The compact does not specify an upper limit." The last documented Article 9 response by the Terran Hazard Fleet, which I found in a treaty archive index from 40 years ago, involved 4 decontamination carriers, 2 medical ships, an engineering platform, and a quarantine enforcement flotilla. Silence, I said. That was described in the archive as a mid-scale deployment. More silence. At 0431, the estimated response composition arrived. It came in compact treaty format, authentication code current, 6 pages, printed it, and handed it to Elder Orn without comment. Because there was not a comment I felt equipped to make. The response would consist of the following: 3 Terran decontamination carriers, each rated for sustained large-scale chemical remediation. 1 hospital carrier with full quarantine ward and mass-casualty triage capacity. 2 engineering platforms, carrying sealed filtration and soil remediation equipment. A supply tender, with pharmaceutical stock calibrated for chemical exposure treatment across a general biological range. And a quarantine enforcement flotilla of 4 corvettes, to establish and hold a perimeter until the contamination status could be formally reassessed and closed. 11 ships. For a contamination event that had been closed before Elder Orn was born, she read the 6 pages. She set them on my console. She said, "The contamination event was resolved 61 years ago." I said, "Yes, Elder." She said, "How do we tell them that?" I said, "I have drafted a transmission. I can send it on band 7. They are monitoring it." She nodded. I sent the transmission. It was 47 words. The event in question had been fully remediated and certified closed 61 years prior. Beacon had reactivated due to a power cell anomaly and seismic antenna realignment. No active contamination existed at Settlement Vorn. The colony offered its apologies for the automated signal and requested to know whether the response could be stood down. Reply came back in 22 minutes. Compact format, authentication code current, 3 sentences. Terran Deep Grid Hazard Response Array, Sector Coverage Station Orvith 9, acknowledges receipt of status update from Settlement Vorn. Article 9 Protocol, once initiated under a confirmed mass casualty signal, requires physical site assessment before stand-down can be authorized under Compact Article. B11. Response composition is en route and will conduct assessment on arrival. If site assessment confirms closed event status, full stand-down will be authorized and response assets will depart. They were coming anyway. Elder Orn read the reply. She set it down next to the 6-page response composition. For a long time she looked at the wall above my console, which was ordinary station-grade paneling, and offered nothing in the way of perspective. She said, "They are sending 11 ships to confirm that our contamination event is closed." I said, "Yes, Elder." She said, "When they confirm it, they will leave." I said, "That is what Article 11 provides." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I want the full remediation history pulled and formatted before they arrive. I want every certification, every soil survey record, every closure document from 61 years of files, organized and ready. If they are coming to assess, we will give them nothing to question." I said I would have it ready. She picked up the 6-page response composition again and looked at it for another moment. She said, "They kept the channel open." I said, "For 61 years, yes." She set the pages down and walked out. I filed the incident report at 0622. In the notes field I wrote that Emergency Band 7 of the Kelvari Joint Hazard Compact, previously believed inactive on all sides, had been confirmed active and monitored by the Terran Deep Grid Array, and that the colony's own beacon registry should be audited for additional units in similar low-power states before any further seismic adjustment events could trigger a second automated contact. I also wrote, in a separate line, that the channel should remain in the active monitoring suite. On our end as well. I did not feel that required further explanation.